Hey there, I'm Steve, and I'm here to present a look at my latest version of a better camera free plugin for X-Plane. Now, you'll notice on the screen I'm loading XP11, but this works even better on XP 12. It integrates with all the new XP 12 features. However, I unfortunately can't demonstrate that today just because this machine that I'm using, which I need to get a new one, doesn't work well when I'm running the video recording, not just my face, but also recording the screen, especially recording the screen and running X-Plane. So the performance is horrible, whereas the design of X-Plane 11 just happens to fit my machine a million times better. And so you're going to see that the quality of this, the speed and the performance is, hopefully you won't notice any degradation just because I'm doing screen capture. But we'll see, because I haven't actually tried making a video yet with this version. But so what I'm going to show you, I haven't actually configured my X-Plane 11 world for a fresh start, so I've got it already set up. I might turn some stuff off just to show you, but I want to show you how to get started using a better camera. Even if you're an experienced a better camera user, there are some changes even in the X-Plane 11 because it's the exact same code for both systems. It's just some new features in X-Plane 12. But actually, those features work in X-Plane 11 too. They're just not bound to commands in X-Plane 11 because they don't exist. For example, wingman view, if that's how you pronounce it. They don't have any documentation, I don't believe, on what it does, but I've managed to emulate it in ABC. So it works on X-Plane 11, even though there isn't a wingman view. But there's the wingman view has a command binding to the keyboard on X-Plane 12. And I can't demonstrate that here, but everything else should be about the same. And what I want to show you is that anybody can get started getting value from a better camera without having to know anything. So if you've ever used the X-Plane camera, you're ready to use a better camera, because what it does is it completely replaces the camera system in X-Plane with a fresh, better, in my opinion, implementation. That means that it fixes a lot of issues in the camera, especially issues around losing your place, something that very commonly happens in X-Plane 11. In X-Plane's camera. I'm not talking about other plugins like X-Camera. I'm not comparing it to that. In fact, X-Camera is currently in control of this cockpit, but I'm going to disable that with a button press. So now, because this was set up to actually test some integration I'm doing with X-Camera, but X-Camera is now off. At least it's not actively controlling the screen. So this is actually the standard X-Plane camera view from the cockpit. And, you know, in X-Plane, you can go up here to the view menu, and for the internal, you can say default view, or just hit the W key, and that's going to take you to this position. So all that's the same. Everything just works. In fact, this is the X-Plane camera. But where the things are going to diverge is up here in the external views, because primarily, well, that's not true anymore, but primarily it was designed, ABC was designed to replace every single one of the views you see listed here. In fact, there are 9 views that are replaced, but you can't see one of them because they're not in X-Plane 11, wingman view. And track weapon is actually not, so there's actually views that aren't listed here, but track weapon is not done the same way. You don't have a track weapon command in ABC. It's just another thing you can track. So if you see a weapon, you can track it. And you can still use Shift 7 track weapon. It'll still work. Anyway, so I'm going to go over exactly how you use these in a minute. I just want to show you this is the scope of the external camera takeover that ABC does. The other takeover that ABC does is there's no menus for it. It's in the numpad keys that come default set up in all X-Plane systems. If you have a numpad on your keyboard, you'll have to define your own if you don't. But Laminar pre-populates the numpad key with command bindings that let you call up what they call quick looks, which are saved cockpit views. Actually, they work for exterior views as well. But X-Plane's version doesn't let you save and restore any view, only a limited type of view. Like they'll let you save and restore a circle view or a chase view. So if you've put the camera where you want it, and I'll show you that, it'll bring those up. But ABC lets you store and retrieve any kind of view associated with the numpad keys. So I'm going to hit numpad 1, and what you'll see is that it actually brings up my saved view number 1. And you'll see down here, there was a thing that showed up. I'm going to make it show up real quick. This is called the status bar, and the status bar is part of ABC. So anytime the camera changes between different view modes and targets, it will show this status bar that tells you, right, here's what aircraft you're tracking, because ABC, like X-Plane, can track multiple aircrafts with the camera. But there's also, right here, the 3D cockpit view is the current. We're in the interior camera. ABC's controlling the interior view right now. Not really. I mean, the interior of the X-Plane camera is not the same as the exterior view. So this camera is actually not controlled by ABC. But when you use the numpad keys, it's going to take over and it's going to do this. So ABC Quick View 1 is view number 1. And if you move the camera away using, say, the arrow keys or the joystick or whatever, you'll notice that. Let me lock it on briefly just to keep it visible. So now I've locked the status bar on, which you have to do if you want it. You can click this little lock, or there's a command to toggle between on and off. So now it's locked on. I don't keep it locked on when I'm flying. I let it come and go as it needs, but you can always bring it up by hitting a key, which I won't really go into in this demo. But so the quick views is actually a menu. And when you notice when we move the camera back and forth, it actually recognizes that this is roughly quick view number 1. If I hit the 1 button, it'll toggle back to the previous view and then back to 1 again. And my 2 is this one. And I can either hit it again to go back to 1, or I could have hit 1 to go back to 1. So it's just basically a toggle. And you see it animates. It's the exact same thing as X-Plane. However, and these are the X-Plane views. They're mirrored between the two. However, you notice there's this anim button. It says plus anim. That means animations are on. By the way, you can hover to get information about any button. You can change the hover timeout and turn it off altogether if you don't want it in settings. But the anim minus anim will stop animation. So now if I hit numpad 2, well, okay, there's one exception which I haven't optimized this demo for, which is zoom. So try to forget that. But you notice that we went straight. You'll see the zoom happens, but the camera movement is instant. The zoom is still happening. In fact, I'm going to redo all these real quick just to take the zoom out because I never use zoom anymore because of this. This is a failing of X-Plane's design. They don't allow plugins to change the zoom. It's just not something they allow. So I have to fake that by simulating you holding down the zoom in and out keys to make it work. And that's just unfortunate. But aside from zoom, the animation is gone. So let me try, and you can't turn off animations in X-Plane anyway. So let's go to numpad 2 real quick. This is the current saved view. I'm just going to zoom out, and maybe I'll move forward a little bit with the camera, and I'm going to save this view again. So one way to do it is how you do it in X-Plane, which is you hold down the control key and you hit the 2 key. But ABC requires a confirmation, so you have to hit it a second time to cause it to be memorized. And that's so that you can't screw yourself by accidentally memorizing a key just because you had your fingers on the wrong buttons, which is what happens. You lose your favorite curated view that you've had for years, your numpad view, because you accidentally held down the control key instead of the shift key or something when you were doing a keyboard shortcut. So ABC and you can turn this off in settings, but ABC will automatically force you to do 2 in a row to rememorize it. When you do that, it also saves that view back to X-Plane as well. So even if you didn't have ABC installed, once you've made that memorization, it's done. So now if I hit numpad 1 to go back to 1 and check that there's no zoom, there's no zoom. Numpad 2 also has no zoom. So you see there's no animation between the two. And I'll just demo with that real quick. So I'm going to turn animations back on, and you'll see the difference. So if I go to 2, we do the animation. 1, we do the animation. And then I turn animations off, which there's a keyboard shortcut for as well. And then toggle. It's instant. You can't get that in X-Plane without this plugin, but you get it for free with this plugin. So forgetting zoom, because a lot of people don't use zoom anyway, because it's well known actually that, like, for example, X camera can't save and restore zoom either in the cockpit. It's not done. ABC actually does do it, but it animates it. And that's only because that's physically the only way I can make it work. And I'm hoping someday Laminar will hear my plea and actually add a way to manipulate the zoom programmatically, just like they do everything else. But because there's that one lacking feature in X-Plane, ABC can save and restore the zoom. It just has to animate it. That's the only difference. So if we go to 3 now, it's going to animate, right, the zoom. But all I got to do is take that out and instead move the camera closer. You know, it's just how it is. And my number 3 view is to start the engines. So I just want to be able to see this display up in front and also be able to manipulate these things. So this is my number 3. So I'm going to save that again. Oh, let me show you this menu. So there's also a menu for doing this. If you're not someone who likes using keyboard shortcuts, you can actually open the menu and see all the views displayed in a menu, and you can choose from the menu. But one thing you can do is you can say memorize. And now when you click it, it's going to memorize the current camera view at FOV 102, which happens to be my current FOV. That's important for the fact that ABC actually does automatic adjustment of views based on your field of view. So it's going to remember that you memorized it at 102, and then it's going to save that as metadata along with the saved view in ABC's data file, which is just like the preps file. If you know, every aircraft folder has one or more .acf files, and there's a .pref or underscore prefs.txt file associated with each of those. And ABC just adds another file parallel to that called underscore abc.txt that has some extra metadata that ABC can use. And that's one of the things it includes. But I didn't do it already because I wanted to show you that if you just hold down the control key, ABC actually recognizes that you're doing a memorize. And so it just shows you that to reflect back in the UI what it's doing. So if you hold down control, and you don't have to hit it in the menu, you can just hit the key over here. But if you use it here, I need to change the timeout of this thing. If you click it here, it's going to avoid needing to do the double click. You don't have to do it twice when you use the menu because that's a more explicit user interface. So now we've saved that one to this aircraft, right? So now I can do 1, 2, 3, and no animations happen. And the camera is basically where I want it. We can just take the rest of the animations out while I'm here just to show you. And I'm just going to do it the other way. This is 4, right? And then we'll do 5, and then we'll take the animation out, move it forward. And we'll do 5, and then we'll do 6, take the animation out. There isn't any, so that's done. 7. You might notice too, there's some that don't say ACF quick view. If we go back to this menu, there's also a thing called global quick view, which is a whole nother subject I won't go into in this video. But global quick views are default quick views that are provided by the system for you automatically. You'll notice these ones, I'm holding down a key to get them to show up. These ones, you don't have to though. You can click global right here. So these ones were recorded by the system by me at 85 degrees of FOV. I have 2 versions actually, so it'll give you the closest one. So if your FOV is below 85, it's probably going to use the 65 FOV that I record, 60, I can't remember which. And then there's an 85. So it'll take those views and remap them to your current camera. I can just show you real quick. So here's a view, and it does use zoom because it has to in order to affect the translation between the 2 fields of view. But you don't need to worry about that. So we'll go back over here. We're doing 7. This one I think we can probably leave, but I'll do this. Let's move it forward and keep it out, or we'll zoom it in just a little bit. It won't matter too much if we zoom it in just a little bit. And then we'll do control 7, right? Yeah, 7 twice, and then 8. This one definitely don't need it. Just got to move it up a little bit. I think it's fine like this. So we'll do 8 twice and then 9. And then we'll take the same zoom out and we'll do the same add a little bit back in, and we'll move forward. And let's do a little bit, more. And we'll do 9 again. And then there's one more 0, which is this view, which is also doesn't need the zoom. It helps a little bit with the angles not looking so bad. It can soften that angle because you can't rotate the camera that direction. It's the only thing you can't do in X-Plane in the cockpit. So you can't make it parallel that screen. I can obviously rotate this way, but that's rotating it relative to the axis of the aircraft, but that's okay. So we're going to save this as 0. which I call 10 in ABC. Instead of everything being off by 1, everything's 1 to 1 in ABC. They're the same numbers on the keypad. It's just what you call them. So, okay, so we'll go back to 1. And now we're done. We can go all around the aircraft. I should have set that up beforehand. There's a little bit of zoom there, but otherwise no animations. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut to toggle animations on. And then you see, if there were zoom, you didn't notice them. I don't know if you know this, but you didn't really notice them when I was doing the first set of demos because the animation is built into the zoom. The zoom happens in parallel, although sometimes it has to catch up at the end. So there might be a little bit of zoom at the end, but it does work pretty well. If you do have zoom and you want zoom, I do the best job I can right now at minimizing the effect of the animation for you so that it looks closer to how it should look. And that's just, I wish I could do it better, but this is as good as it gets. Okay, so I basically have demonstrated that, and those are all interior views. Now, I actually have set up views 11 through 20 in my configuration. Oh, let me get rid of that. Can I get rid of that? No, I can't. Where did I put that? I can't remember where I put that. I forgot to plug in the controller. I plugged in a hard drive instead to that slot. I only have so many USB slots. I got to plug that controller back in to get the crosshairs to go away. There's a command to do it, but I'm not going to do it. So that's basically this Quick View 11 is the other bank. You saw them when I looked in the menu. Laminar, unfortunately, doesn't predefine the keyboard shortcuts for the second bank of 11 through 20. But the idea is on Windows, you hold down Alt, and then you have to set these up in the keyboard shortcuts. You can hold down Alt and then the same numpad keys to get +10, right? So then you can have to do Control Alt to do memorize and then Alt to do view. And on Mac only, the other two are Alt. On Mac, it's Shift. You can't use Alt because if you use Option, which is Alt, it gives you the things that are written on the keys like home and up arrow and page up and all that stuff. Phew, I'm trying to get this, not go too deep, but it's hard. Okay, so these ones, if you can also choose them from the menu. So if you don't have keyboard bindings, that's why I built the menu actually. So you can go to all 20 of your available views. And the policy I use personally is I do 1 through 10 as interior views. You see here it says 3D cockpit to help you know, because I know what's stored in the data file, so I can show you what it is, right? Summarize it for you. And these are the first 3 these are my personal ones that I've built for this plane. So I have 11 through 13 are the circle views, 14 through 16 are what I call control views. This is X-Plane 11. In X-Plane 12, it's ride-along versus chase, but they're inverted on X-Plane 12. So I don't want to go into it now, but anyway, so this would be chase. What you're seeing now would be chase on X-Plane 12. And then the third set are actually chase used to be the same semantics as ride along today. So X-Plane 11's chase is ride along in X-Plane 12. Hope that doesn't confuse people. This is one reason why I wish I could just demo it straight on X-Plane 12, but this is a ride along view. So chase and X-Plane 11 followed the aircraft just like ride-along view does. So it was redundant with ride-along view. So what I did in ABC was I made this second set of things called control view, which actually is what chase view is in X-Plane 12 today. So that's it. So the names changed, but that's not my fault. That's really X-Plane's fault. They didn't have what I call control view, which is now chase. They didn't have that in X-Plane 11, but ABC gave that to you and still does. So anyway, so you have these quick views, and you noticed I moved away from it, but if I move back, I don't even know where I was. Let's do one. So here I am at 18. I can move away. If I move back, it says 18 again. You can change the zoom too, and it'll not recognize the view. You have to hit the view. And you notice it's animating, so if I turn animations off again, you can actually go inside and out with no animation and between exterior views. Look at the bottom. You look at this number to see what I'm doing. I'm doing 15, 17. So on Mac, I'm on a Mac. So on Mac, I'm hitting Shift along with each of these numpad keys. So Shift 5 is view 15. So here, and Alt 5 on Windows. So here I am and looking at the front of the aircraft. if I change the zoom too much, it doesn't recognize the view anymore. So ABC actually tells you within a margin, because it doesn't want to penalize you for not getting it perfect. So it lets you find that view that you'd already had to put the camera roughly back where it was if you don't want to just toggle back to it. But you can always toggle in ABC. That's the nice thing, which is the same exact semantics as the X-plane toggle, because you could look at a view that isn't a numbered view. And then you could go to, let's say, Shift 5, and then hit Shift 5 again, and you're back at that unnamed view. So ABC works the same way. And then the last little pièce de résistance with animations turned on is going to any interior view. So I can hit numpad 9 to go to the window view. And I can hit it again to go to the exterior. The animation to the exterior is my old animation system. It's going to be better in the next iteration. But that's one of the first things I'm hoping to do when I start the next version of the plugin. One will take you back to the cockpit, and I'm just toggling to go back. If you turn off animation, then you can toggle between them extremely fast. And the next thing is you can actually toggle between aircraft. So I hit a command key, which was equivalent to hitting this arrow down here. And I happen to have, you can actually click here. If I go back to the user plane, you can actually click the name of the aircraft in the status bar to see a list of all the aircraft. And there's actually a window that provides a richer version of this with tabs instead of you having to manually switch, because I also have live traffic installed. And so you can take the camera in ABC and look at any of these aircraft. It went back to the previous camera view, which wasn't centered on the target. That's a feature of ABC, but this is where it gets really cool. The newest thing I did was I made it so all of these shift keys that are whatever defined here as the keyboard shortcuts for these views, you can hit them and go to that view, but in ABC's camera. So let's do tower view. I don't think it's going to show a very good view because it's really far away. So there's tower view looking at a non X-plane aircraft. This is not one that's built into the X-plane camera. The camera can't see this in X-plane. You have to use TCAS, which I don't want to go into, to be able to see this aircraft in X-plane, to track it from the tower or from anywhere. I'm going to hit Shift 8 now to do chase or whatever it's called. Yeah, chase view. So this is actually ride-along view. But it's not in X-plane 12. If you hit 8, you'll get chase view in X-plane 12, which will be a different semantics, right? It'll be what I call control view. But it'll say chase, because I don't mess with your head that way. So when you're behind the aircraft, it starts out behind the aircraft, but you can move the camera. And then if you do something like I was saying before, but go to the next target, that didn't work very well because it's not really a plane, but you see where the camera is. If I go to the next target, another stupid car, you notice that the camera is always in the same relative position around every aircraft. I'm just going to use keyboard shortcuts. So you see, these are actually AI aircraft that X-plane does know about. And X-plane's camera does the same thing. It's just that they don't manage the distance from the aircraft properly, whereas ABC automatically adjusts the camera position based on how big the aircraft is, something that X-plane does not do. It does keep the camera from getting too close, but it doesn't actually move it in and out based on the size of the aircraft. So if you move the camera to be like right off the front of the nose in chase view, because, well, this is right along in X-plane 12. But if you do this, then if you go back to another aircraft, you see you're in the same logical position. And you notice actually in that other example that the crosshairs are higher than the nose. That's because ABC has a curated table of as many aircraft models as I could find where I've manually tried to adjust them, not for accuracy of the actual position of the aircraft, but more from the side view and the distance from it, so that it looks roughly the same as you switch between aircraft. But I can't get it perfect because it depends on who's rendering the aircraft, what policies they use to render it, because some of these aircraft aren't rendered by X-plane. This is rendered entirely by the plugin, live traffic in this case, as a 3D object. So X-plane doesn't even know about it unless you were to turn on in live traffic's TCAS mode, which I'm not doing, right? So we can go back to the user aircraft with one click. And let's go back. Now I'm going to show you again. Let's go back to the cockpit. So this is another very standard thing is you're flying your aircraft. I'm also going to toggle the status bar back to its normal mode. So we're flying the aircraft. We're doing whatever we need to do. Nothing's bothering us. Then we decide we want to go get an exterior view of the aircraft, right? In fact, let's take this. You notice here, I'm going to put the camera here and just show you that if I hold down the modifier key and I go to the next aircraft, or I pick an aircraft to go to that is one of the AI aircraft that X-Plane knows about. So we'll go to this Cessna. This is an X-Plane aircraft that has an interior cockpit. You'll notice that the camera was preserved between these two aircraft. So here we are in this third-party aircraft, and here we are in a built-in Laminar aircraft. They're not exactly the same, but it logically translates the camera view. So here I got closer to the ceiling, so it's translating that to this aircraft. And it's got a bigger cockpit, so it's harder to pinpoint the exact position, but it actually does a pretty good job. And you can really switch around between aircraft trivially inside the cockpit. X-Plane does the same thing, but it doesn't keep the position correct. It uses the absolute position instead of rescaling the camera position based on how big the aircraft is. And I also use a vector that is from the center of gravity to the pilot's head, the default pilot's head position, which is what happens when you hit W. And that's something that X-Plane provides. So if I hit W in an AI aircraft, it takes me straight to the pilot's head position. And that's the vector that gives me the similarity that I need to be able to compare two aircraft positions. So if that's wrong, then I can't do that math for you. But if otherwise, I can pretty much accurately assess where to put the camera based on something about the size of the aircraft overall, which I also have to maintain in a table because X-Plane doesn't give it to me. I can infer it by some data, or by the pilot's head position, and by the pilot's head position, so I can take those two things and extrapolate a vector. So the vector right now is from here to the pilot's head, and then I apply that vector and scale it by the distance, the difference between the two sizes of the two aircraft. And it works very well. There's some places where it falls down, but very few. So anyway, so I can be in this third-party aircraft now, acting like I'm flying this plane. So we'll go back to the pilot's seat. Oh, and the numpad keys work. So since this aircraft, which is a Stinson, I can just use the keys that I've already programmed for this aircraft, even though it's not the current user aircraft. X-Plane doesn't work that way. So ABC gives you the ability to really focus the camera controls on the aircraft you're looking at, which lets you watch an AI aircraft and do an entire demo from an AI aircraft. And the viewer of the video, if you make a video, doesn't even need to know that it's not the user plane. And they can probably tell because the controls won't really be right. Like these things aren't updating. So, well, they may be actually in some of the planes, but not all the planes. So anyway, if we're in this aircraft, let's go to a different one. No, I don't like this one. Yeah, we're in this aircraft and we want to see outside it, right? So the normal thing that you do, your muscle memory, is to hit either, let's say, Shift 2 to do a flyby. I won't do that yet. Or Shift 4 to go to circle view. And so you hit Shift 4 and you go to the exact same position that the camera would have been at had this been X-Plane's circle view. But we actually are in ABC's circle view. And you'll notice that the camera position is actually above the aircraft instead of down here, which is where X-Plane would have put it. In fact, I can show you where X-Plane will put it. Let's do it this way. I can override the auto feature. So here we are in X-Plane's circle. It says XP circle here. And you see how low we are relative to the aircraft and how far away we are. X-Plane has no idea how big the aircraft are. And it does, but it's not using it the way it should. And so it's just the camera's really far away. But if we use ABC's Shift 4, we get a much better pre-position. And we're also able to change that in settings. There's a whole settings UI in X-Plane that I'll just show you so you have some idea how to use it. It's basically a user manual. Every setting is a half or a full page. You can obviously make the window bigger. It's just like any X-Plane window. So you can make it bigger. You can widen it to but you can only make it so small, and it has to fit at least 2 half pages of settings. So basically, some settings are short, some are long, but they all have a description, and either there's some kind of option, and they collapse really nicely into one line. And so you can actually do everything on that one line. You can change any of the settings, either check them on or off, and you can hold the cursor over it for that hover you saw earlier and get a description of what that setting does. Some things are much more detailed, like a user manual, and they might be a whole page. And that's why when you toggle it open, some are short and some are long. And you can also use tags to sort of simplify. So if I want to look at just settings for circle, I can click the circle tag. And I also have my expert mode turned on. If we turn off expert mode, we see just these settings for circle. And actually, I'm going to use this magic button right here that resizes the window to fit. And you can right drag a window. You can also turn transparency off in one click. So here we are. Just for this window, by the way, the status bar is still, well, it's actually pretty dark. Let's make it lighter. Whoops, that was the zoom. We'll make it a little lighter so you can see through it, because it is transparent by default. It is only transparent, but you can make it opaque by manually adjusting the see-throughness, the transparency. But this is a toggle, and then you can adjust the actual transparency. If you don't like doing it the way I showed you, you can do it in a slider here as a scroll wheel with the scroll wheel, or by dragging it, whatever you want to do. And you can reset it to the default for the particular color scheme that you have loaded. And then you can also change color schemes. You can actually toggle through this long list of 100 and something color schemes if you want. But those don't matter when you click this, because now that window is not transparent anymore. So anyway, so we can turn off or we can unzip these, and then we see the settings that allow you to make some changes to how ABC treats the camera position for every new circle view, and also for chase for some things like distance. So the default is 1.7 times some number. You can make it 2.3 if you want to look more like X-Plane. Or there's also a starting zoom, which you can just let it ABC calculate for you. And then these are multiples of the calculated zoom. Based on the FOV, it might adjust the zoom. And then there's the default height angle, which is what we saw. This is 10 degrees above. It's actually defaults to 6, so I can reset the view. Here, let's get rid of that. And you see here, I didn't hit it right. You see here, there's a reset button, this circle button. You just click it and it resets the view. So this is a new circle. I could have hit Shift 4 too. That's the other way to do it. So if you take the camera over here and hit Shift 4, that's the X-Plane way to reset a view. So I implement that when you're using those bindings. So if you know, I didn't bind anything, okay? The only thing I've been binding that you haven't seen are all the little things I've told you I'm using a keyboard shortcut for. But as far as Shift 8, Shift 4, and now I'll show you Shift 1 and 2. So let's do Shift. Let me check what setting I have on right now. So auto zoom is on by default, so I'm going to turn it back on. This is something you've never seen before unless you've used ABC. Shift 2 is still spot in X-Plane, but ABC keeps the aircraft roughly the same size in the view as it flies, which also gives you a nicer view of the background because it puts the camera above a little bit as well. It depends on which way the aircraft's going. If it's climbing or descending, it might do different things. But you can reset the view with a command or with this button, and it'll just start it over. Or in X-Plane, you just hit Shift 2 again, and that starts the view over. Shift 1 is a similar view called linear spot. It just looks like the aircraft moves slower, but really it's a different view altogether. The camera's moving in front of the aircraft, but the aircraft can overtake it. So it lingers more in the close-up view. But you notice again, auto zoom is on. So if I look at the status bar here, you notice two more controls here, auto zoom and auto roll. So auto roll is about something like the difference between chase and circle, or between ride along and circle, where it keeps the camera relatively level to the aircraft instead of the terrain. So I have it on by default in ABC because it's cool. And then auto zoom is on by default. If we turn it off, we'll have to reset the view because we let it get so far away. ABC will start the aircraft closer, more like what X-Plane does, but it's still pretty small and hard to see. And if it judges wrong for still spot, the faster one, it's pretty fast, so it's not that big a deal. But for linear spot, it can take a while for it to catch up in both systems. So in ABCs and in X-Planes. And by the way, ABC's version of this lets you move the camera. I'm moving it with the arrow keys, or you can right drag the camera. You can't do that in X-Planes version. And you can obviously zoom manually using the scroll wheel or using plus and minus or whatever. It's actually equal and minus. But in ABC, you can actually stop the flyby wherever it is. You don't have to reset the view, but you have to use ABC's custom commands for that, because if you just hit, if you just hit the flyby command, it's always going to restart it. Whereas in ABC, the flyby command is actually a toggle, but that's the one you have to bind to the ABC keys. I'm not going to go into that. But here's an example of it anyway. I'm going to do, let's do this. We're going to do, oh, right. My keyboard shortcut memory is set up for the other one. Let's do this. Let's turn back on auto zoom. And then I'm going to show you, oh, I did it again. Let's do it one more time. So we're doing a flyby right now with auto roll on. And then I stop the camera in chase, which is right along in X-Plane 12. And then what I can do is actually continue the flyby. Stop it, continue it, stop it, continue it. It moves a slight little tiny bit, but that's just probably a bug in my code. But you get the idea. You can't do that with X-Plane's camera. And you can also change the camera around the target while it's moving, which you can't do. You can do that with linear spot, with still spot in X-Plane. But the still spot camera doesn't move correctly when you move the camera. You'll see if you play with it. And you contrast it with how ABC's works. ABC's is substantially better. Let's turn back on animations. We'll show one more time the flyby. Well, let's go to a still spot or a linear spot. From there, you see it animates back to the camera position. And if you hit Shift 4, it'll stop the flyby and take you to the default circle position instead. And then also the numpad 1 does the same animation. If you're doing an AI aircraft, this is only for AI aircraft, that you can do the interior views. So we can go back inside the cockpit of an AI aircraft and go back out to where we were and back in again to a different view or whatever we want to do. It's all super awesome. So that's basically the nutshell. There's a whole bunch of commands that you'll want to set up keyboard shortcuts for because they give you some amazing power. I'm just going to show them to you real briefly. So you no longer need to define most of these commands anymore. Unfortunately, it's really hard to rework commands in X-Plane, so I have to leave all these. But there are some, like the smart key and the modifier key, that you should definitely add bindings for. This doesn't show up because I have an old binding. Don't worry about it. So you should put an X or a Z or whatever your favorite key is for this one, an A or something like it for this one, and they do different things. I won't go into it here. All these different things you saw me do. But what's important is the position adjustment commands, the second set down here. These ones are things that allow you to very quickly manipulate the camera. And I was using those throughout the demo just now. So I didn't tell you when I did, but you can probably tell if you look. So I'll show you a couple real quick. So there's quick zoom. So you can hold down, I have Alt as my key that I set up for all these. So I have Alt plus or Alt equal, do quick zoom in, and Alt minus, do quick zoom out. So instead of just holding down the zoom and letting it zoom, you can actually do it all in one click. You can go all the way out to 1x as well. Let's go to Shift 4. There's also a telephoto, which moves the camera back half as far or twice as far as you are, and then zooms in twice as much. So the effect is pretty cool. It's better with the aircraft that are flying. Here, let's show it here. The scenery is not very good because I don't have very good scenery around this airport, but there's something anyway. Isn't that cool? And then there's quick skip right. It takes you 60 degrees, but you can change that in the settings. So if you're on one side of the aircraft and you want to get to the other side, you just do it 3 times. That's 180. 1, 2, 3. And it catches up. So the animation will catch up to you. And without animation, it's even faster, right? There's also the up and down, and those are 30 degrees up and down. There's also the skip back, which I hinted at with the other one, and skip forward, or jump back and jump forward, I call it. And actually in the cockpit, those are useful because you can actually jump back and jump forward, jump left and jump right. I did it backwards, but you get the idea. Jump up, jump up and jump down. You can do those in the cockpit of any plane if you have a 3D view. So I'm using jump back, jump forward, and you can jump through walls with this. This is what's really nice about it. Because just by using the arrows, you're not using ABC, right? The arrow keys are controlled by X-Plane for the interior with, well, the right drag I take over if you ask me to get rid of that bug in X-Plane, but that's an optional feature that's not on by default. So X-Plane doesn't even, and I take over the zoom also, the regular zoom, this zoom, sorry, the scroll wheel zoom, I mean. I take that over, so that's currently disabled because I have zoom lock on right here. So zoom lock turns on the X-Plane feature, which changed in X-Plane 12, but it turns on the X-Plane feature, so you have to hold down a special key, which in ABC is the modifier key, in order to use the scroll wheel to zoom, so that it won't conflict with zooming as a way to adjust instruments and stuff. Okay, that's it. Thanks very much for watching. If you have questions, there's tons of information available. I've got many videos. They're all out of date. This is my newest video, so hopefully it'll be useful to you. This should really help people understand that you can get started without any keyboard shortcuts. But yeah, you should look at the keyboard shortcuts, and some things are in this status bar down here. The most important key to bind is that one that I didn't bind, which is the modifier key, to be the X key or the Z key, whichever one you prefer, because that will really help you if you just touch the Z key. So here, if the status bar, it'll time out. You can change these timeouts in settings too. But when it times out, you can just hit the Z key or the X key, whichever one you've programmed. I call it the modifier key, to bring it back up, and I'm holding it down. When I let go of it, which I just did, now it'll eventually time out again, right? So, but depends on the situation. If you're in the cockpit and you have the setting enabled that says don't show the status at all in the cockpit automatically, then when you hold down the modifier key and let go, it'll just disappear unless you're hovered over it. Because as long as you're hovered, see my mouse is over the status bar, as long as you're hovered over it, it's not going to disappear. Okay, not always. There are some bugs where it does disappear where it shouldn't. There's also a bug where a couple places, because when you click on the background of it, it'll lock it on. So be aware of that. You might accidentally click the background of it, in which case you just slide over here and click the unlock button, and it actually goes away pretty much immediately in that case. But if you bring it back and hover again, by the way, you noticed when I was holding down that modifier key, it also shows the border around it that you can drag it and move it, but you don't need to do it that way. If you can see it, you can right drag in ABC, any element on the screen, you can right drag and move it where you want. In this case, it's centered. This is right justified, which has a minor bug I'll fix soon. And this is left justified. And then you just drop it and it'll center itself in centered mode. Oh, there we go. I wasn't in it. So there we go. It's getting wider, but I also allow you to hold down the modifier key as you saw in scroll, and you can make it smaller or you can make it much bigger. It'll get clipped at the edges, of course. So if you're making a video and your screen is super high resolution, you might want to make it bigger. There's also a generic way to do that, which I really should show you real quick. It's called senior citizen mode. So just search for senior and you just click that, and now everything gets bigger. All the fonts get bigger. So this can work in concert with the UI zoom, which they've renamed in the latest version. But here it's user interface size. So if you have already maxed out your user interface size and the pixels are so dense that the text is still tiny, then you could just click senior citizen mode on, even though it doesn't really apply in that scenario. It's really high definition or high resolution display mode. I should probably rename it. And it'll basically zoom the text larger. And then you can still zoom any individual window like this one. You can zoom it much smaller or much larger. So you can actually go way beyond what you just saw. There you go. This won't even fit anymore though. So hitting this will go back to 100%. Hitting this will physically resize the window. And then you're to the default, to the shrink wrapped version, because you can't make it any smaller than this. And this little thing lets you do all that. You have to click that to open it. Just on the windows, there's another window I didn't show you because it's on the other screen. I have 2 monitors. Let me bring it over. This is the tracking list, which the reason it was there was because I have the tracking list disabled in the cockpit. So when you have it on the second monitor, it doesn't go away. Or if you have it popped out, which you can always pop ABC Windows out into the OS layer or back in again. And this is the MGUI cursors. So here I've turned MGUI cursors on. No, off. Oops. Well, there goes that. Okay. Well, that's the end of my demo. Thanks for watching. I think my hard drive got disconnected. See ya.